What's up? What's up? What's up, bro? Welcome to my channel. Just enjoy watching. Let's start.
The Land of Iron was a cold, unforgiving place. It was not a country where shinobi trespassed easily. For this was the land ruled over by samurai, a fearsome military might that gave even the third Hokage of Konohanga reason to pause. If it wasn't for the sake of preserving the long-honored traditions of the shinobi, then he would never willingly set foot in this territory. Unfortunately, trad was precisely what dictated this ceremony, and even a man of his position was powerless before such a force as tradition. The most veteran of the Konoha shinobi stood on the observation deck of an iron fortress, looking down over an arena not much different from the kind they used to host Chunin exams. The only difference here was the blanket of snow covering the arena floor, more and more piling on as tufts of white powder continued to fall from the infin gray sky. None of the snow made it to the platform, a sheet of metal above their heads protecting them from the elements. Floating in the air to his left was the third Tsuchikage, Ryotenbin no Onoki. He hovered in the air just high enough to be able to glare from eye level at the Hokage, as if him to say something about his height. Among the Gokage, these two were the eldest and most experienced, yet even with all that age and wisdom, they had never reconcile their differences and restore their friendship. A fact that Hiruzen regretted to this day. In between them both was the leader of the samurai, Mifune. This was the man renowned for having fought Hanzo of the Salamander to a standstill. That put him on the S level as Hiruzen's three students, an elite group known as the Sanin. Yet Mifune wasn't the one that concerned the old man, no, it was the one that the samurai served truly set him on edge. The high sage of the great elemental nations, known only as Kurama. The tall man was dressed entirely in a white monk's robe and currently sat Caesar style on a high rise just behind them. His face was hidden behind a white fox mask, similar style to the kind of mask the Anbu forces of Konoha wore, wild red hair tied in a short spiky ponytail, making the top of his head look like a pineapple. This man, he wasn't human. Certainly he looked human, but he was something more than that. Why did Hiruzen know this? It was because he had come to the Land of Iron several times over. Long tenure as Hokage for this ritual, and not once had this Kurama aged so much as a day. Legend had it this man had been hand-picked personally by the Sage of the Sea to be his successor, and he had served in the role ever since. Thank you for gathering here today. Mifune spoke in place of his master, nodding to the Hokage first and Tsuchikage second, something which seemed to displease the man, although he wisely kept this grievance to himself. As you know, our master chooses a village every 9 years for which to give his blessing. This was the true reason Hokage would risk coming to this dangerous land, for the simple blessing of this high sage. That's because it was no mere blessing. The power of Kurama's word was incredibly potent, and any country that received it was guaranteed nearly a decade of prosperity. Blessing had made the difference between victory and defeat in the past great ninja wars. It wasn't something that could simply be ignored or waved away as mere super. It was imperative that they have it no matter what. This blessing couldn't be so easily obtained, however. Once, a nation had tried to get it by attacking the Land of Iron, attempting to force Kurama into giving them his blessing. By his word alone, that nation ceased to exist. Only by honoring this ancient tradition, could you receive what you sought. Except this time was slightly different. We know this year's condition made for a difficult choice. Mifune continued, having paused to observe their facial expressions. For our master has taken a recent interest. Unique power that has fallen into the hands of the ninja villages. We believe you shinobi refer to these weapons as the Jinchuriki hosts. He spoke with absolute authority, unaware that the word he just uttered was something ordinarily only spoken of in hushed whispers. The Jinchuriki were, in a sense, human sacrifices. The power of monsters with varying numbers of tails, known as the Biju, were sealed inside them. These Biju were the personifications of nature's wrath itself, causing unspeakable terror and the countless loss of life whenever they appeared. As such, the hosts of these creatures were often viewed with contempt and fear by their peers. So while they didn't give up their lives in any kind of final sense of the word, the life they would live was usually far from joy. Now then, please introduce the competitors of today's demonstration. Mifune asked them, fully aware of how ridiculous a demand he was making. The Jinchuriki were effectively military secrets, which was why Kurama had only learned of them recently. To show them off was the same as revealing their projected military might. Of course, Cage knew this, but chose to bring them anyway. The other nations had refused, their Cage young and not understanding the weight of this tradition, resulting in only the villages vying for the blessing this year. Hiruzen and Onoki once more locked eyes, a silent conversation happening between them. This was their last chance to stand down. No, it was already too late for that, and both knew it. To back out from the ceremony now would only seek to disrespect Kurama and invite his wrath. The only path for them as ninja was to endure and move forward. Turning back to the snowy arena below, Onoki held out his arm and indicated his village's Jinchuriki. Representing the proud might of Iwagakure no Sato, is Han. Upon hearing his name, the freakishly tall man clapped his fists together and bowed deeply. He is the Jink of the five-tailed dolphin horse, the boiling calamity. The legend says the land of Earth was once covered in ocean, the rage of the beast boiled the water until it all leaving only the rocky earth that is now our home. If even a fraction of such a legend was true, to think that power was all stored inside a single human was terrifying. Han needed no help appearing even more terrifying. His height aside, he was covered from head to toe in heavy red armor. The strength required to travel in such gear have to be extraordinary. On his back was some kind of device that looked like a furnace, emitting steam that melted the falling snow around him. Atop his head was a hat made of the same material as his armor, and the lower part of his face was covered by a mask, leaving only his eyes visible. Based on appearance alone, anyone here bet on his victory when compared to the Jinchuriki that Konoha had brought. Proudly representing Konohagakure no Sato, is Uzumaki Naruto. Hiruzen smiled softly, almost in a grandfatherly manner as he looked over the young boy he brought. Naruto was short for his age, Han standing easily twice his current height. He had an orange jacket, the front of it unzipped even in this cold to expose fishnet armor. Young age, his abdominal muscles were well defined, showcasing the results of a strict training regiment. Matching the jacket were equally orange pants and the headband Konoha displayed proudly beneath his mop of spiky blonde hair. Finally, he wore a small crystal necklace, a gift of the first Hokage passed down from Jinchuriki to Jinchuri. He is the Jinchuriki of the four-tailed monkey. Hiruzen continued, gaze drifting to the black staff tipped with gold on either end. Naruto held it in his hand, the staff almost tall as he was. It was a gift from the Monkey King Enma, the contract summon paying his respects to Naruto as the Jinchuriki of their great sage. The staff was made of adamantine, a material stronger than even diamond. The Sarutobi clan had a long, storied relationship with Enma and his kin, and in respect for this contract, they often after the Jinchuriki of the Yonbi. That was why he had taken on the task of raising Naruto after the death of his parents. Hey, he's not just the Yonbi, you know. Naruto didn't bow like Han, instead turning to gaze up at them with steel blue eyes, not the least bit concerned with decorum as pointed with his staff in their direction. He is the handsome monkey king of the water screen cave, the king of the sage monkeys, bestowed with the Dharma name of So. The sage of six paths. His name is Son Goku, the great sage equaling heaven. Remember it. He tapped the staff on the ground upon completion of Son Goku's complete epitaph. Hiruzen sighed, tipping his hat to cover his eyes as if to hide his embarrassment. Not that he could blame Naruto, the boy was still only 12, after all. It was true, he graduated from the academy 2 years ago, after passing the graduation exam on the first try and pulling ahead of all his peers in his age group, but he was still far from emotional maturity of an adult. He only hoped the others in attendance would consider this when deciding on how to deal with him. A small movement out of the corner of his eye caused the Hokage to glance timidly towards the high sage. It was a subtle motion, Kurama simply lifting an arm with the rustle of his white robes. He held a fan, the Bashozan, a tool created by the sage of the six paths. With a flick of the wrist, the fan sent a small flicker of flame upwards. Exact meaning of the action was lost on almost everyone present, only the head samurai able to determine the translation. I see, Mifune nodded, stroking his beard as he spoke. Turning to address the Hokage, our master has taken a liking to your Jinchuriki. He has high expectations for his performance, he said. How so much information was conveyed with a single flicker of flame, Hiruzen did not know, but he didn't dare question it either, just relieved they avoided execution. Mifune turned back to the two Jinchuriki and held out his arms. Brave ninja, we ask that you fight honorably and with nobility. May your clash represent virtue of your village. His arms dropped, and with it his permission. The fight between two Jinchuriki, a clash that the ninja villages attempted to avoid at all costs. Neither of the two combatants cared much about politics or this blessing everyone else sought with such fervor. For them, this was simply a chance to finally test themselves. A way to verify their own existence is two human sacrifices. As Mifune arms fell, their muscles tensed, preparing for the explosion. You may begin. Only the first syllable of the final word had left his mouth when the two shinobi kicked off. To an untrained eye, it looked like they simply vanished. To the eyes of all those attendants, their motions were all too easy to track. While the force of Naruto's propulsion only caused snow to fly off the ground, Hans had erupted the earth beneath high. Entirely. In only a fraction of a second, the two had crossed the distance between one another. Han appeared with his fist cocked back, Naruto crouched low, swinging his S upwards. Han's fist alone was larger than Naruto's entire head. Steam burst out from between the gaps in his red armor. It boosted the speed of his punch and multiplied its power fold. A direct hit was a death sentence. Yet in the face of such terrifying power, Naruto didn't even flinch. His adamantine staff hit Han's wrist. This altered the course of his blow just enough that it sailed over Naruto's head and split the snowy ground. In the same movement, N kicked off of Han's elbow. Then his shoulder. Using his opponent's very body to gain an aerial advantage, he jumped high into the air. He held the staff over his head. As he began his quick descent, he brought the staff down, adding the power of gravity to his swing. Han didn't even look up. He simply lifted free hand and caught the comparatively skinny staff between his giant fingers. Then with a simple swing of his arm, he sent Naruto flying several dozen yards. Taking immediate control of his flight, Naruto tucked in a ball and flipped 3 complete rotations. Burying the staff in the ground, he caught himself. The moment his feet touched the ground and Han was on him again. Despite his massive size, he was incredibly fast. Speed alone wasn't going to be enough to catch Naruto though. He ducked under Han's wild haymaker. The steam bursting off his armor was hot enough to scald his skin and caused his open jacket to billow. Ignoring the burning pain, swung his staff low, catching Han's shin and sending him tumbling. The very earth shook, Han's body hitting the ground with enough force to cause the fallen snow to jump. Rolled on the ground, using the momentum to bounce back to his feet. A second later he erupted forward. Naruto had barely jumped back to his own feet and he was forced to dodge out of the way again. An elegant dance of dexterity and pow began. Han's fists flew like a machine gun. Naruto's short, but nimble body twisted out of the way at the last second every time. With every twist, Naruto spun his staff, the black stick appearing as nothing more than a blur. It twirled around every part of his body, spinning off his neck, arms, legs and torso. And with each complete rotation the staff struck Han. They were mere glancing blows, the heavy red armor deflecting the adamantine staff like it was a twig. Like could never land the finishing blow. Meanwhile, all it would take was one misstep for Han's fists to break his body. And the more Han moved, the more speed and power he gained. Steam rolled out from every joint in the armor now. His eyes glazed over in a mad, berserker rage. All exactly to Naruto's plan. The point of his attacks were not to wear Han down, but work him up. Han's boiling jutsu had one critical flaw. The steam slipping out from the armor revealed the joints and weaknesses in it. Armor that could withstand this kind of jutsu muse required constant upkeep, but it was impossible to check every plate. The panels on his left shoulder rattled a little more than the rest, the plate threatening to come loose. Was Naruto's opening. He spun the staff with more speed than before, every twirl building momentum until it made a loud whooping noise with each pass. Then he struck. The gold tip smashed shoulder of Han's armor. The red plate cracked and came loose, causing a chain reaction that unraveled the armor covering his entire left arm. There was no chance to Sele. However, Naruto's foot slipped, sliding into a fracture in the earth that Han's fist had created in his rampage. It was a split-second distraction. Naruto glanced at his footing, just long enough to correct his stance. That was all it took. Han's fist connected with Naruto's abdomen, shattering ribs and pulverizing organs. There was a cough of blood. Naruto's body vanished, the force of Han's blow launching him horizontally. Snow flew up, creating a cloud of white powder that concealed him. Sight. Regardless, there was no mistaking the gong. That was the sound of Naruto's body hitting the iron wall of the arena. Following that was absolute silence. Han stood with his fist still extended. His exposed left arm shivered against the cold snow that fell onto his bare skin. He barely felt the sensation, still sweating from the heat of his jutsu. The only noise that could be heard was his gasping breath, the exertion from his berserker rage having taken its toll. Even still, he didn't take his eyes from cloud of snow that hid Naruto. He, along with everyone else here, knew that this wouldn't be enough to end the fight. A Jinchuriki couldn't be beaten so easily. A few shattered bones and pulverized orga wouldn't keep them down for long. As they all predicted, there was a pulse of dark energy. A sinister chill filled the air, pure malice leaking out onto the battlefield. The ray was about to begin. The snow was blasted away by a powerful gust of wind. Naruto stood at the center of this torrent, but he was different from before. The shattered bones snapped back into his organs, inflating into perfect shape. His body was covered in a bubbling red chakra cloak, the source of this incredible healing. The cloak formed something vaguely in shape of a single large tail. As Naruto smirked, he revealed razor-sharp tusks. Doden. Rock Fang Jutsu. Han clapped his hands together, forming a series of hand seals too fast to distinguish their individual shape. Then he slammed onto the ground. Both hands. The very earth itself transformed, twisting and molding like it was alive. A wall of mud rose up and transformed into jagged sharp rocks. Those teeth like stala, launched like missiles, homing in on the recovering blonde youth. Naruto inhaled deeply, filling his lungs with oxygen. Throwing his head forward, he opened his mouth wide and unleashed the cry of a wild monkey. The red chakra amplify voice. Their combined power shattered the rock missiles, canceling out the jutsu entirely. Han didn't even notice, his jutsu only meant as a distraction. He reached deep into the well that was the seal containing the biju inside of him. Drawing from that well, he pulled out the same power that currently surrounded Naruto. Malice in the arena multiplied, becoming thick like a miasma that clung to the ground and walls. Red chakra bubbled to the surface, clinging to Han like a protective cloak. Naruto, the semi-fluid chakra formed a single large tail behind him. The two Jinchuriki glared at each other from opposite ends of the arena, neither one of them immediately leaping forward this time. Naruto's expressive blood-red eyes bow. Han's tiny black pupils. The first exchange had been Han's undisputed victory, but simple taijutsu and weapon arts were hardly the mark of what made a Jinchuriki strong. The incredible amount of chakra they possessed, which did, as evidenced by them generating enough for the chakra to have taken physical form. How they used these vast quantities of chakra would be the true indicator of the stronger Jinchuriki. Yoden. Scorching Rocks Jutsu. Naruto left the staff at his feet, running through the seals with both hands. Once more he inhaled deeply, but this time it wasn't a yell, but barrage of molten lava meteors he regurgitated. They flew across the arena in streaming streaks, careening towards Han. Doden. Earth Wall Jutsu. Han bent down, channeling his chakra into the ground and creating a thick wall of stone. The molten rocks bounced off the wall, hitting the snow and rolling about. The melting snow quickly dissolved into thick plumes of steam. Doden. Crushing Force Jutsu. He stepped forward, slamming the wall with an open palm, knocking it forward like it had been made of paper. The wall slid across the ground, threatening to crush Naruto between it and the iron wall behind him. Yoden. Hellfire Swamp Jutsu. Naruto crouched down, placing his hands on the ground and channeling his chakra into the earth. The air began to shimmer, the terrible his jutsu turning the falling snow into rain. The sliding wall sunk, falling into a pit of lava, half the arena now transformed into molten earth. Even the iron walls weren't unaffected, turning red and beginning to warp with the heat. With the expulsion of such a powerful technique, the red chakra cloak flared brighter than before. A second tail began to grow, Naruto becoming less human and more mo. His skin started to peel, leaving behind black and charred flesh. If things continued as they were, then he would be consumed completely by the Biju. Knowing he couldn't any further, Naruto raised a hand and gripped the crystal necklace. There was a flash of emerald light, the seal inside the necklace activating. It flared brightly, pushing away the malignant red chakra as if a sun that was scaring off the Shah. In a matter of moments, the bubbling red chakra had receded entirely back into Naruto's seal. He was himself again, but the same could not be said for Han. Unlike Naruto, the giant man had given himself further to his Biju. A second bubbling tail grew, the red chakra becoming thicker and thicker. He collapsed to all fours, as if devolving into some wild beast. The gurgling sounds he made now could not be thought of as the voice of a human. It pained Naruto to see someone losing to the hatred monster inside. Son Goku had once been filled with hatred as well. He didn't trust the Jinchuriki or in their ability to see him as an equal. It was only by memorizing his full epitaph that Na had been able to begin the slow process of earning the monkey sage's trust. Even with the trust of Son Goku, however, the power of the chakra cloak was simply too much human to handle. That was why Naruto only called out higher tails as a last resort. A choice that Han didn't seem to have. He and his Biju hadn't reached some kind of reconciliation, the Gobi attempting to achieve freedom by pushing more and more Cha through the seal until Han transformed completely. If things continued down this road, then this would cease to be a demonstration and turn into an actual battle to the death. Wiping some of the earlier spat blood from his chin, Naruto prepared his jutsu to stop that. Kuchio's no jutsu. He unleashed the power of his summoning contract, calling upon those who had pledged to aid him whenever the need should arise. There were fu of smoke, followed by an audible pop for each one. As the smoke cleared, 4 bipedal, prepubescent monkeys of varying color were revealed. Yo, Naruto, how's it going? The green monkey, known as Futenmaru, greeted the blonde with a huge grin, not at all concerned for the situation that he had been called I. Oi, Futenmaru, we're not here to play around. The yellow monkey, called Jidenmaru, scolded his younger brother. He grabbed his head, turning his attention ahead to the transforming Jinchuriki in front of them. Now, greetings are also important, wouldn't you say? The blue monkey, who went by the name Sudenmaru, asked. He attempted to get between his two elder brat, trying to defuse the situation before they started fighting amongst themselves. Who cares about all that? Let's get to the fight already. The red monkey, Kaidenmaru, glared at Han as if angry at him. These 4 were the children of the Monkey King E, and had been Naruto's friends from the time he had signed the monkey contract just over 2 years ago. Hey guys, thanks for coming. Naruto flicked his staff up with his toes and caught it in one fluid motion. I want to restrain the big guy. In order to do that, I'll need y'all me a couple minutes. Is it alright if I count on y'all for that? He stuck the tip of his staff into the ground, jumping up on the opposite end, balancing precariously on it as H entered a meditative stance. You've got it. The 4 brothers called as one. The only time they were in sync was when it was to help Naruto. They all clapped their hands together and were temporarily hidden by bursts of smoke. Transformation jutsu. 2 of them changed into exact clones of Naruto, the other 2 morphing into staves identical to the one he wielded. Their preparations were now complete. This wasn't to say Han had been waiting for them out of a sense of honor or respect. No, in the time they had spent preparing, a third tail had grown. His skin peeled away completely, black blood filling the fluid chakra cloak and completely masking his real body. He was a monster in every sense of the word now. One without reason or logic. An instinct to destroy. Han gave a bestial roar, leaping forward with all 4s onto the molten terrain. His chakra cloak protected him from the terrible heat, the red chakra already hot enough to had peeled away the man's flesh. The 2 Narutos also stepped onto the lava without incident. This was because their true forms were Kaidenmaru and Sudenmaru. Kaiden had domain over fire, and simply negated the heat to make himself immune. Meanwhile, Sutenmaru had domain over water, cooling himself to counteract the heat. You ready, brother? Sutenmaru called, falling just a step behind the eldest of the four. He raised his staff. Its true form was Futenmaru, who had domain over wind. Zhu. Simple flick of him in staff form could generate powerful gusts, strong enough to create tornadoes. That was their aim, Sutenmaru swinging his brother, Futenmaru, to pop the area with ... miniature twisters. Always. Kadenmaru put on a burst of speed, jumping on the twisters as if they were platforms and using them to gain an aerial advantage. Just as he was directly over H. Threw himself down with all his weight. He brought the staff down with him, this being Jinmaru, who had domain over the earth, allowing him to increase and decrease H. Weight on command. The tip of the staff struck Han's head, Jinmaru weighing over a ton at the point of impact. Han's entire body bent oddly, the weight of an entire ton causing him to stretch unnaturally. If he had been an ordinary human, such a blow would have been a death sentence. However, Han was no normal human. He was a Jinchuriki. It's hot. Jinmaru cried in pain, despite being a staff supposedly as hard as diamond. This was the first time something had ever managed to harm him while in this form. It hadn't even been from an attack, just the act of striking Han's body enough to cause this pain. Just deal with it, Kadenmaru scolded, jumping out of the way as Han's tails attempted to bat him down. We knew this wasn't going to be easy if Naruto called all four of. He talked. Han leapt for him with claws extended. Yet he didn't even flinch, knowing his brothers had him covered. We got it already. Futenmaru created a barrier of wind that caught the rampaging Han. Ordinarily the gale should have blasted Han off his feet and sent him flying. Dug into the ground, the wall of wind contorting his face. His claws dug into the walls, cutting a path through. Wah! Kadenmaru's exclamation was cut short, Han's arm bending at an unnatural angle and stretching to grab him by the throat. Brother! Jinmaru cried out, the staff extending until it slammed into Han's chest. He pushed the Jinchuriki back, knocking his grip loose. Kadenmaru fell to the molten G. As Han was forced into the iron wall. I can't pierce him, just what the hell is this guy made of? The four brothers had never come across such power before now. Han let wretched roar, flailing his limbs and knocking the staff loose. Jinmaru retracted, resuming his normal length as the four brothers regrouped. They had promised Naruto minutes, but they were no longer confident they would be able to keep their word on that. Han stumbled back to four limbs, but he didn't charge. Instead he emitted particles of black, red, and blue chakra into the air around him. Stretching his mouth wide open, gathered those particles together until they formed a dense, compact ball of pure energy. The ball collapsed on itself, growing smaller and more dense until it was no large. A grape. Han consumed that grape, swallowing it whole in one bite. That was bad, right? Sutenmaru asked, but none of his brothers answered. There was no time to, even if they had heard him. Han's body had inflated, bulging unto like a balloon with too much water. He burst a moment later, ejected a beam of orange light. Combined transformation jutsu, the four brothers knew what it was they had to do. This ball of energy was bad news, but Naruto was still counting on them. And they kept their promises to their friends. Hell's Gate. The four of them merged into a single entity, a massive iron door with the face of their father etched onto the front. Ultimate defense, said to be absolutely impenetrable, even the souls of the damned unable to force their way past. A legend that was about to be put to the test. The Biju Dama slammed into the gate, exploding on impact. The entire gate was covered in the blast, the clouds in the sky be pushed aside to reveal the bright sunlight. With the absence of clouds, the snow no longer fell. And as the smoke cleared, the gate was revealed to still be standing, proven legend true. The gate vanished a moment later, its purpose served. In its place, the four brothers were left standing in their original forms, covered in marks and bruises. It wasn't they physical forms that had been hurt, but the chakra necessary to withstand the destructive force of the Biju Dama had left them almost completely drained. Any minute now would disappear, at this point hanging on by sheer willpower. Fortunately for them, they didn't need to hang on much longer, their mission having been a success. Thanks guys, I owe y'all one. Naruto walked up behind them, staff in hand. When the fight had first started, his eyes were an optimistic bright blue, the same color as Th. Sky. When channeling Son Goku's chakra, they had become a vampiric blood red. Now his eyes were a vibrant orange, the mark of a sage that had studied under Son Gok. Don't mention it. Call us after everything is over and let's hang out. Kaidenmaru spoke for all the brothers, the four of them smirking at their friend. They knew he would, even with that thing as his opponent. That was the confidence they had in the power of their race's sage technique. A moment later and they all vanished in bursts of smoke. Now then, time to wrap this up. Naruto walked forward slowly. His gait was confident and full of self-assurance. He spun the staff leisurely, using only his right hand. Terrain was still covered in molten lava. This was his territory. Han's front limbs gave out on him, causing him to fall. The release of a Biju Dama combined with the constant burning of flesh left his body completely exhausted. Even Th. Chakra cloak wasn't enough to hold him anymore. To compensate for this, a fourth tail grew to join the first three. With that tail also came a skeletal structure, taking the S of a horse around him. These bones lifted him up, forcing his exhausted body to move. One more tail and he would transform completely into the Gobi. That was something Naruto couldn't allow to happen. He had confidence in his sage mode, but he doubted own ability to go toe-to-toe with the full power of a Biju without completely unleashing Son Goku. That wasn't to say it was something he couldn't do, but in this situation, thought it would be better not to. After all, the two were technically brothers and he didn't want to force them to fight if he didn't have to. The skeletal horse galloped forward. Its hooves clopped on the molten earth with every trot, kicking up sparks and stoking the smoldering embers. Naruto took a deep breath, watching the air that he pushed out from his lungs mix with the world around him. He could feel the energy of nature itself, the entire world bright and vibrant, very much in the same way he was. This was what it meant to use Sage Mode. He saw Han charging him as if he was moving in slow motion. Even in his madness, the intent of his next move was clear. Leaning his head forward, he pointed the crown horns on the back of his skull forward in an attempt to skewer Naruto right through the heart. Naruto merely held his free hand forward, catching the horn and stopping H. Charge with a single arm. With a small grunt of exertion, he lifted Han in the air and tossed him. The skeletal horse let out a kind of neigh as it spun head over heels, coming crashing down with a loud thud on the burning earth. As it stood up to shake itself loose, Naru began to charge. He glided across the ground like it was made of ice, closing the distance between them in a matter of seconds. The horse let out another neigh, extending four tails like spears that flew to intercept him. Naruto swung his staff, knocking one tail to the side, then the other. Before the third tail could strike he retaliated, the gold tip of his staff hitting Han in the side of his exposed skull and knocking him sideways. The horse staggered, but man, to stay standing this time. It turned, opening its mouth wide and unleashing a jet of fire hot enough to incinerate the walls of the iron cage they were trapped in. Naruto H. Both arms high, thrusting the staff horizontally over his head. As he did, the molten lava they fought on moved with him, rising up to create a wall to intercept the burning flames. This was the true power of Son Goku's Sage Mode and what differentiated it from all other forms, the ability to manipulate lava with nothing more than your body movements. Naruto spun the staff, twisting it around his neck and thrusting forward at nothing but thin air. A block of the lava wall broke off, launching at Han like a molten fireball. Th. Jumped to the side, dodging out of the way, but was quickly forced to dodge a second one. Every swing of Naruto's staff broke off another lava ball, each one bombarding Th. Han attempted to retreat too. As the last section of the wall disappeared, Naruto felt danger approaching from below. He backflipped, dodging out of the way just in time as a massive black hand ripped the earth apart with its tendril-like fingers. Had he been a second closer and it would clamp down around him, crushing him like it did the hardened earth. Swinging the staff sideways, Naruto created a tidal wave of lava that buried the hand, forcing it back underground. Only too late did he realize it was a distraction, Han having emitted the particles necessary for another Biju Dama. He ate the compressed chakra, body bulk, in preparation to launch it. No you don't. Naruto swung his staff up, causing the molten earth just below Han to inflate like a bubble. It threw him off balance, disrupting his aim and causing the aura blast to fly right towards the spectators. Ah shit. Naruto panicked, trying to create a wall of lava to catch it in time. It wouldn't be fast enough, the Biju Dama careening. Direct collision course for the Iron Fortress. The third Hokage threw his hands together, preparing some jutsu as the third Tsuchikage did the same, throwing both open palms out in front of himself. Mifune slipped in stance, grabbing his sword and bending forward in order to ensure the fastest possible draw speed. All these preparations proved pointless. For the High Sage was able to, with the Biju Dama with nothing more than a simple flick of the wrist. Kurama swung the Bashozen upwards, generating a terrible gust of wind more powerful than what even Futenmaru had been capable of. It hit the Biju Dama, altering its sea, and sending it skywards. The orange blast hit the clouds where it exploded, opening another hole into the clear sky. The action completed, Kurama lowered his arm and continued to observe the fight as if nothing had happened. It took the other spectators a moment longer to regain their composure. My bad. Naruto waved at the High Sage, doing his best to ignore the old man Hokage's glare. Something told him he was going to be hearing about that little slip-up late. That he had the time to be worrying about that. Just because he had averted one Biju Dama, didn't mean Han wouldn't unleash another one. He had to hurry up and put a to this ridiculous fight. Unlike Naruto, Han was too far gone to understand the consequences of his actions. He galloped towards Naruto again, once more bending his head in an attempt to catch young blonde with his crown of horns. Naruto swung his staff, lifting the lava beneath his feet to launch himself skywards. Han ran into the risen lava, the semi-viscous wall collapsing around him. While still in midair, Naruto began twirling the staff like he was mixing a giant pot. The lava that had fallen around Han began to spin, trapping him further in it and hardening as it rapidly cooled. In a matter of moments, the beast was completely immobile, only able to thrash his head about in a vain attempt to get free. This wouldn't hold for long, however, cracks already appearing in the cooled lava. Within that time, Naruto applied the seal. As a Jinchuriki himself, he had taken an interest in seals from a young age. It was also his lineage, the Uzumaki clan renowned for their craftsmanship before they had been almost completely annihilated. Naruto lost his mother from a young age, but she had left behind records of all her studies. So by using the first Hokage's necklace as a cat, Naruto had practiced all kinds of sealing techniques. It was just such a jutsu he had used to suppress Son Goku's chakra earlier and what he intended to do to Han now. Naruto gripped his necklace, having landed in front of the other Jinchuriki. He had placed numerous seal formulas inside the necklace, and by channeling his chakra a certain way, he could call on the one he needed. As far gone as Han was now, he was going to need a particularly strong one too. The necklace glowed with a bright emerald green. The seal activating and beginning to purify the Gobi's chakra. Han thrashed more violently than before, as if the Biju knew what Naruto was trying to do. The volcanic rock cracked and crumbled, bending against the Biju's power. Naruto hastened the sealing process, forcing back the red cloak and splintering the skeletal strew. The red glow of the cloak clashed violently with the green of the crystal necklace. The lights merged together, generating a bright, white flash. Followed by an explosion. Naruto was thrown backwards, landing on the small of his back and sliding against the volcanic terrain. His ears rang and vision filled with spots, temporarily rendered dia blind by the point-blank detonation. The seal had been working, he was sure of it. So why had the Gobi wanted freedom that badly? The complete form of the Biju emerged now, parts of it still obscured by the remnants of the previous explosion. A single swish of one of its massive tails knocked down the wall of the arena. Their battle could no longer be contained to such a confined space. Not that the Biju had any interest in such a battle to begin with. Instead, it turned its to the High Sage, ignoring Naruto completely. The Gobi primarily resembled a white horse, but with a dolphin's head. It had two pointed longhorns in the rear and two shorter horns in front. It also had red markings on dark blue-green eyes. Those eyes glared at Kurama, as if directing all his rage at him. It lowered its head, preparing to charge. Naruto stumbled back to his feet, but there was nothing he could do and he knew it. Not on his own, anyways. If he summoned the full power of Son Goku, then they stew chance at stopping the Gobi's rampage before it even began. Yet Naruto was still hesitant to do such a thing. He had wanted to win this fight on his own merits. Are you still thinking such stupid things, Naruto? Son Goku's voice echoed inside his mind. He blinked, and the scenery before him changed completely. The handsome King sat before him, perched on top of a tall rock. Naruto stood on a flowing lake, a waterfall behind him. Son Goku was a red-furred and green-skinned monkey, with the body build of a gorilla. It had eyes with orange eyes and white pupils, spike-like protrusions along the len. Its tails, elongated blunt fangs, and two long horns curving upwards on its forehead like a crown. Do not disrespect me by ignoring our connection. You are my Jinchuriki. You not. Son continued to scold, revealing the inside of his mouth. He didn't have a tongue, but had an opening that was shaped like a volcano. It's not like I'm trying to disrespect you or anything like that. Naruto stamped his foot, angry that Son would even suggest such a thing. I'm trying to be considerate of feelings, you dumbass. He just thought that Son Goku wouldn't want to clash with another Biju, since he knew they were all siblings. Your kindness is noble, but in this instance, it's naive. Son said with a sigh. He pointed down at Naruto, the gesture commanding that he sit and listen. I will teach you of ancient history, so pay attention. That high sage you shinobi all obey. He is not a simple human. Of course, I would be disappointed if you didn't already understand. Son gazed out into the abyss, looking somewhere very far away. Or perhaps sometime long ago. I already figured that out, yeah. Naruto admitted with a shrug. He knew a little about the high sage even before coming here, but meeting him had confirmed one thing. Sure, he's a Jinchuriki, right? The feeling Naruto got when looking at Kurama was the same feeling he had when he met Han. There was a kind of resonance, something Jinchuriki could feel. No, he is not a Jinchuriki. Son corrected him. Kurama is the Kyuubi no Yoko himself. He has simply taken on human form, the transformation ability a speciality of Fox Yo. Long ago, the Sage of the Six Paths had a decision to make. He needed a successor, and originally he considered his two sons as the primary candidates. However, in the decided he couldn't trust humans with his power. So the sage chose someone else, the eldest of the Biju, Kurama. Wait a second. Naruto held up his hand, cutting Son off. If Kurama is really the Sage of the Six Paths successor, why does he seem to hate ninja so much? The sage the one to create ninjutsu, after all. So Kurama should be something like the master of them all. Instead he made them gather every 9 years to kill one another for his blessing. Ninjutsu is a bastardized version of the Six Paths sage's ninshu. Son spat, as if sharing in Kurama's displeasure. Kurama does not approve of what you ninja use RM teachings for, but he also understands that the old sage's will was to let humanity determine their destiny for themselves. So he holds these fights in hopes that one day a successor of ninshu will reveal themselves. Well, until recently that was his goal. There was an awkward pause in the air. You mean until he found out about the Jinchuriki? Naruto didn't even have to guess as to why. If Kurama really was a Biju like Son and the others, then it made sense. Wouldn't be too happy to find out that they had been taken prisoner by humans. Precisely. Son nodded, stroking his red beard thoughtfully. I cannot speak for certain of Kurama's true intentions, but I imagine he demanded to see the Jinchuriki this because he wanted to see how we were treated by our hosts. This is why your proclamation of my true name earlier curried his favor. So then what's up with the Gobi? Naruto asked. It seemed like Kurama was checking on his younger siblings as a concerned older brother should do. So why would the tailed dolphin horse be so angry at him for that? It just didn't make any sense to him. I believe Kokuo has misunderstood Kurama's intentions. Son answered, jumping down from the tall rock and landing in front of Naruto. This is likely a combination of FA. He may be treated poorly by his Jinchuriki, or perhaps he is slightly jealous of Kurama's position, the sage's successor and still free, unlike the rest of us. Regardless of Kokuo is not in his right mind. Which means it is up to me to knock some sense into him. He extended his fist, waiting patiently for Naruto's response. I guess you must see his actions as embarrassing for your kind. Naruto gave a small huff of laughter. He then threw the staff over his shoulder and grinned up at the Lar. Primip. Alright, let's do this then. He agreed, lifting his arm and fist bumping Son Goku. The change in the outside world was instantaneous, Naruto and Son Goku swapping positions. 1 second he had been a short, blonde boy and now there was a massive monkey in his place. At the same moment that Son Goku appeared, Kokuo started to charge. His head was bent low, horns aiming to skewer the small gathering of specta. Son Goku leapt forward, grabbing his brother by the horns and yanking him backwards. With a mighty toss he threw Kokuo into the last standing panel of the iron wall, causing it to collapse. As the dolphin horse struggled to get his skinny legs under himself, Son Goku opened his mouth wide. A jet stream of blue fire erupted from his volcano-shaped tongue. The intense heat batted Kokuo back down and raised the temperature. Surrounding atmosphere several degrees. From within the blue flames, there was a sudden green glow. Son Goku snapped his mouth shut, putting an end to the flaming onslaught. One red eyebrow curled curiously as he tried to figure out where the glowing energy was come from. Tendrils of emerald green light had popped out of Kokuo's chest and were binding his limbs and tails. It was only when he saw them that Son realized what was happening. Naruto's earlier sealing had worked after all, but Kokuo had been resisting it until now. The damage of the flame attack had been enough for Kokuo to lose the strength necessary to fight the seal, and now he was being dragged back into his Jinchuriki host. Dolphin horse grew smaller and smaller, reverting back into a skeleton. Then a blob of black and red chakra, and finally turning back into Han. At the same time, Son Goku willingly swapped places back with Naruto, his job now complete. In a matter of only a couple seconds, both Jinchuriki were back to their usual forms. Naruto stood tall, staff slung over his shoulders, with his elbows curled around it and palms dangling. Han, meanwhile, was on his knees. The red armor he wore proudly apart, the pieces falling all around him to reveal a muscular, bald man. The only article of clothing he had left were tight-fitting black trousers. He lifted his head, dark eyes staring into Naruto's vibrant orange. Han's eyes alone said everything that needed saying. He apologized for allowing his beast to go rampant, thanked Naruto for stopping him with the seal, and let him know. Ready to continue the battle. Naruto nodded, acknowledging those emotions. Then he brought the staff around, holding it in front of himself and at the ready. Han struggled feet, his body still exhausted from the constant damage of using the Biju cloak. All the same, he forced himself to move. Steam began rolling off his muscles, filling the air and strengthening his body for one last bout. Naruto stood. Completely still, feel natural energy around them and finding his center. The gray clouds above them closed back in, bringing with it the returning snowfall. As if having been waiting for some signal, the two shinobi exploded into action as the first snowflake fell in front of them. It was exactly like the first move that started the whole fight. Han cocked his fist back, bringing it down in a wild haymaker. This time, Naruto was in sage mode. He read T movement and at the last possible second twisted out of the way. In the same movement he brought the staff high. It bashed Han in the back of his exposed head. The two passed by one another, standing back to back. Several seconds of silence passed. Then Han fell. His knees hit the hardened volcanic rock, followed quickly by the rest of him. He lay there face down, unable to stand again. The fight was over. In a battle of Jinchuriki, the smaller one had emerged victorious. This was a win for Konoha. And for Uzu. Naruto. Back up in the balcony above the arena, Hiruzen, Onoki, and Mifune all turned to wait for the High Sage's judgment. His expression was impossible to read behind the mask, and the only movement he had made throughout the whole battle was to deflect the attack that approached them. Otherwise, he had remained completely still, Caesar style with his hands on his lap. Now he stood, and with an enhanced leap, he jumped down to the arena below. Master, Mifune called in surprise. In all his years serving the High Sage, he had never known him to enter the arena and stand amongst the competitors. That was Becca. Disdain for the shinobi was well known, although he and the rest of the samurai had always been ignorant as to why. Even now, he did not know Kurama's true identity as. To him, this was all unprecedented, starting from when Kurama had called for the Jinchuriki. Kurama landed on the volcanic rock without so much as making a sound. He walked forward with bare feet, utterly silent as he approached Naruto. The young Jinchuriki straight, planting his staff in the ground and looking up at the high sage's fox mask without fear or trepidation. The sage mode had vanished now, leaving him with his optimistic, sky blue eyes. The two stood face to face, neither one of them saying a single word. Hiruzen and the others waited with bated breath for Kurama's judgment. Finally, the high sage raised right hand holding the Bashozen. With a flick of the wrist he emitted a plume of orange flame. Everyone spectating breathed a sigh of relief. Konohagakure no Sato has received the high sage's blessing, Mifune declared, turning to face the Hokage. Congratulations, it was a most splendid performance. He merely following decorum. In truth, he was terrified of the power he witnessed down in the arena. However, it wasn't his place to question the high sage. I will pass that on to Naruto, I'm sure he'll be thrilled to hear it. Hiruzen said. He and Onoki shared another glance, the shorter of the two Kage giving him a begrudging acknowledgement. Then the Hokage turned his attention back down below. He was proud of Naruto, but also worried. He just hoped the hyperactive knucklehead didn't saw anything to the high sage that would get them all in trouble. Back down in the arena, Naruto grinned up at Kurama. Like with his opponent, he stood quite a bit shorter than the high sage, having to crane his neck to look up at him. That he was this close, he noticed the spikes of his red ponytail were split into 9 strands. Such a detail made it feel like he really was the 9-tailed fox, exactly like so. Goku said. And for some reason, that made Naruto happy. You're pretty cool, you know. Naruto said casually, not at all concerned with the station of who he was addressing. And don't worry about a thing, I'm gonna take good care. Son, alright, I'm giving you my promise. He held out his fist, waiting for Kurama to bump it. A moment passed. Mifune gripped his sword, prepared to jump down and lop Naruto's hand off. Hiruzen moved to stand in his way, sensing the danger. Both of these actio proved pointless. Kurama slowly and awkwardly extending his own fist. He paused just short of Naruto's hand, before summoning the courage and gently bumping it. The whole time, Kurama had not uttered a single word. The truth was, he hadn't spoken in centuries now and wasn't even sure he still knew how. As his fist connected with Naruto's, however, there was an exchange of chakra. In that moment, his emotions and feelings were transferred clearly to the young Jinchuriki. So even without words, were able to understand each other. Naruto looked shocked for a brief moment as he read Kurama's heart. Then his smile returned as he chuckled happily. What exactly he experienced when Kurama shared chakra was something Naruto would never tell. It was their secret and he would take it to his grave. And with this gesture, the high sage's trial had been completed.